Kenya is an East African nation with Uganda, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia and Tanzania as its neighbors. Kenya gained independence from Britain in 1963. Uhuru Kenyatta is the current president. He took over as president on 9th April 2013. Kenyans approved a new constitution in a referendum on August 4, 2010, which came into effect on August 27, 2010. With a population of nearly 40 million, Kenya has great ethnic diversity. The East African coast and the west coast of India have long been linked by merchants. The Indian diaspora in Kenya has contributed actively to Kenya's progress. Many Kenyans have studied in India. In recent times, there is a growing trade and investment partnership. In 1981, both the countries accorded most favored nation status to each other. Although trade links between India and East Africa go back several centuries, recent migration from India took place in the 19th and early 20th centuries, initially via Zanzibar and Lamu and then through Mombasa. Indians were brought in large numbers to work in the Uganda Railroad. Merchants, artisans and others followed. Eventually, a vibrant community of persons of Indian origin emerged. Several Kenyans of Indian origin have distinguished themselves as lawyers, judges, doctors and academics. The Indian diaspora in Kenya numbers approximately 70,000 persons. The Kenyans of Indian origin play lead role in the development of their adopted homeland. Many Kenyans also prefer to study in India. Nearly 18,000 visas for India are issued annually. Government of India offers over 100 scholarships annually to Kenyan nationals. The ties are set to grow further.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of State of the Economy. India is going to host 54 African heads of state at the end of the month in its major Africa outreach program. This event will be marked by deep conversation between India and African countries to deepen relations. As part of this initiative, we are doing a series of conversations with the representatives, ambassadors and high commissioners of African countries in New Delhi. And today we have with us the High Commissioner of Kenya, Ms. Florence Weche, who will be talking to us about India-Kenya bilateral relations, as also the deepening ties between India and Africa. Welcome to our show, Ms. Florence Weche. So let me ask you with an initial question as to how do you see in the current environment, global environment, there is a risk of global economic slowdown. Countries are trying to come out of it by deepening trade relations. So in that context, this big India-Africa summit, how do you see it?
Thank you, Venu, for this opportunity. And as you have said, the India-Africa summit will be taking place in New Delhi. Many African countries will be participating. All the 54 have been invited, and many heads of state have already confirmed participation, including my own head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Let me say that our connections with India, Africa-India, go way, way back, even before the colonial times. We in Kenya are privileged to be on the eastern coast, bordering the Indian Ocean, which we share with India. And so we were on the spice route.
Yeah, you're part of the spice route. In fact, there used to be pre-industrial revolution era, there used to be trade between India, Kenya, and the other part of Asia. Yeah.
And in fact, it's for that reason that foods like biryani, pilau, chapati, and so forth are not new to us.
Okay.
And of course, when the colonialists came, the building of the first railway for Kenya was built with the help from India.
Okay.
Indians were brought in. The name they were called was coolies. They were brought in to build that first railway. And during that building of the railway,
Which year would this have been? The 50s?
the 19, yeah, before that.
Before that.
Yeah, and during the building of that railway, in the savannah, where now we have all the wild animals, there were lions roaming around, and many lions devoured both the Indians and the Kenyans. Then after, during our struggle for independence, India stood alongside us. After we got our independence, some Indians came back home, some stayed behind and got Kenyan citizenship, and they have continued to move along us as we develop. And of course, you are aware that many other Indians have now come to Kenya and have joined in the development process. In fact, names like Reliance, Tata, Keloska, Bharti Airtel, Mahindra are well known in the Kenyan environment.
And tell me, there's recently our Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman spoke about how trade between India and Kenya was really booming. In 2009, the figures that she gave was trade between the two countries was about $1.5 billion, 2009-10, our financial year. And in 2013-14, it had gone to $4 billion, nearly 3 times. So what is it that is making India-Kenya trade tick in your view?
Yeah, it is true. In fact, in 2008, as you have pointed out, the volume was maybe 1.2 billion volume of trade. The figures that we have for 2013-2014 puts it at 3.2 billion. The figures on the Indian side are a bit different, slightly different.
Yeah, on our side it's $4 billion.
Four. Yeah, with 3.7 of which
I thought the figure should
export.
match, right? Okay.
It depends on how they are collected and collated.
Collated, okay.
Yeah, but the increase definitely has been there. It is true that trade is booming. Of course, it is imbalanced because most of the products are coming from India to Kenya. And most of the products that we import are petroleum oils, the luxury goods, electronic equipment, agricultural implements, and pharmaceuticals also, Yes. And so it has been growing, and I think that's a good thing. Yeah. But we want to ensure that this imbalance does not go on for a long time. So now we are also looking for markets in India for our produce. Tea, coffee, and pulses.
Kenyan coffee is, of course, very famous. Yeah.
Our coffee is very, very prime from the volcanic soils. Our tea also is prime. It's very different from the Indian tea. And I have met a few Indians who have tasted Kenyan tea, and they say it's very good. So we're trying to see how we can, change the palate of the Indian people.
Market Kenyan tea here.
So that we market our our tea here. Yes.
Is it a good time to sort of access new markets? Do you think since world commodity prices have fallen, is that in any way a hurdle to selling more? Although one should sell more in times of in such times when prices have fallen, so that the consumer gets it at a better price. So, do you think there's an opportunity here?
I think there's an opportunity in India. India, the market is big, and as I've said, is to look at changing the culture and their eating habits, because this market is what everybody tries to strive for. 1.25 billion people is anything to kill for. Even if you got a small iota of that, you'll have actually done a lot in terms of addressing the...
And tea particularly, most states are actually tea drinking states, mostly, yeah.
They're tea drinking states, yes, I agree. But our tea is different. Yeah. And I can attest to that because I have tasted Indian tea. and I also know about tea. Yeah. Okay. So the room is there, the potential is there to export. So what we are asking the Indian government to allow us to bring in, although India is self-sufficient in tea, but to allow us to bring in our tea and our coffee, and to see how we can.
Tell me, in the current situation, with India also growing quite rapidly and has emerged as probably the third among the four largest economies by purchase power parity basis. How do you view Africa? Africa also is being regarded by Western investors as one of the fastest growing markets, at least over the last 5-7 years. And they are looking at Africa as a huge opportunity for the future. So, how do you see Africa and India coming together in their trade and investment interaction? Investment is also equally important. So, and how do you see this in the context of China, Africa also deepening their investment relations, trade and investment relations?
In fact, 10 of the fastest growing economies now in Africa. And Africa is the sought after market in terms of investments, in terms of market. We have 1 billion people, and that's a big market. We also have the youth. That's also a big market. Our middle class is growing very rapidly, and so the appetite for finished goods and luxury goods is there.
Your average GDP growth has also been close to 5% in recent years.
Exactly,
right?
And we hope that will continue growing. Now, there are a lot of opportunities, investment opportunities. India, given its geographical terrain and everything, seems to have everything. But on the other side, we say, why don't you come and invest? We tell the entrepreneurs, why don't you come and invest? The same way the Prime Minister is saying, come, make it,
make in
India.
Yeah.
We also got our own slogan now from our own president, come, make it Kenya.
Make it Kenya.
Make it Kenya.
Make it Kenya.
Yeah, as an investment destination. And the opportunities are big.
That's very interesting. We'll take a small break here and come back to this discussion. Please don't go away and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to this special edition of State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with the High Commissioner of Kenya, Ms. Florence Weche. Ma'am, so you just spoke about how Africa is also growing at a very good pace, nearly 5% GDP growth. India is also growing. And do you think in a modern context, there could be a revival of the old Silk Route of the pre-industrial revolution era, where trade between Africa, Arab countries, India, and on the other side, China and Southeast Asia, was very robust across the Indian Ocean?
I think you're bringing in the Chinese aspect. What I can tell you is that Africa is open for business.
Africa is open
for business.
Yeah.
And we're looking at what is comparatively advantageous for us.
Okay.
India is a forerunner in this because of the historical perspective. Yeah. And we know that you have appropriate technology suitable for us. So it's actually for the Indians to exploit that. As I've said, we have a lot of opportunities in Africa. And if I can come to my own country specifically.
Can you name a few areas, opportunities that exist, education or banking or what?
Yes, if I can begin with the agricultural sector.
Agriculture.
Okay, we are trying to achieve food security in Kenya. India, of course, is an example. A few years ago, India was having a lot of problems.
And food security is a big issue among developing countries.
It's a very big issue, I must say. And what is interesting is that this India-Africa Summit is actually happening at the backdrop of what has just happened in New York in terms of the new 7th Millennium Development Goals.
Yeah, sure.
Where ending hunger is at the top.
Is a major objective.
Yes, and of course ending hunger means achieving food security. And to achieve food security, in my country, for instance, we've now known that we need to mechanize and irrigate.
Agriculture, increase agriculture productivity.
With mechanization and irrigation. So India is a very good example to learn from in terms of going that direction. And of course, with agriculture comes the issue of food.
So will food security be a big focus in the India-Africa summit?
That's one of the areas. Food security is there.
Can I ask you something in this context? How do you build a mechanism where between governments you do joint combined farming? Because the experience so far has been that when private sector goes to buy land, I have seen in Ethiopia and other places, even in Kenya, there is some resentment among local population that private sector companies are buying vast tracts of land. Now, can this problem be resolved if governments come together and do joint farming under a government-to-government program? Is that a possibility? I'm just thinking aloud.
That's a possibility. Of course, with the economies of scale, it's better to have large tracts of land whereby you can now irrigate and mechanize. Yes, but I don't see it being a problem for those companies that are willing to come there and have joint ventures in the farming area.
Okay, with the government?
With the government or even with
or with the local company. Yeah.
It is okay. It's very welcome.
So there's no problem. In Kenya, there's no problem.
No, because the aim at the end of it is to achieve the food security that we're striving for. Yes.
And what are the items that one can grow an Indian company can come and say grow in Kenya in a joint venture?
We're talking about the coffee, we're talking about the tea, we're talking about maize, we're talking about rice, we're talking about fruits and nuts and potatoes, everything you can grow there. And of course, we are also looking at the strides that India has made in its white revolution.
White revolution.
Yeah, so that we can be able to
build dairy products, right?
Dairy product, and how they've been able to support their farmers in that line. And of course, you're also moving well in the blue revolution. So a learning experience from India in all that. Another area that we're keenly looking at is in the energy sector.
Oh, yeah.
As we move to ensure that we have enough and affordable energy, but energy that is also green. So
because the new focus in the Paris climate change, the run-up to Paris climate change conference, is that everybody is committing to green energy. India is committed to a minimum green energy as part of its basket. Everybody is committing. So is that an opportunity?
Many opportunities. Africa is where the sun is.
Solar.
So solar is there. Wind. We have areas where the velocity is so high. So wind energy is there. For the traditional also, we also have geothermal. I know India is not comparative.
What is your present dependence on in terms of energy sources? Largely,
we have hydro.
Hydro. Okay.
We have hydro, but quickly we are moving into the other areas. We've also have got now discovered large deposits of coal, so that's another area we'll be going. But more and more we are looking at the new and renewable sources so that we also deal with issues of climate change. Yes, another area that we're also looking at, not in any hierarchy, is in the area of healthcare.
Okay, healthcare.
Yeah, as you know,
nurses, doctors, etc.
Yes, not only that, but people that are coming here, so many of them from Africa and from my country to seek medical attention.
Okay, that's medical tourism, right?
Medical tourism. For lack of a better word, the word tourism is used because what is happening is nothing close to tourism. These people,
it's suffering there. Yeah.
They're suffering. They sell their properties to be able to come here and get treatment. But for those who come and they come early on time, they've gone back with smiling faces. What we are saying now is that
Indian hospitals come there and set up.
Why can't the hospitals and the facilities come closer to the people? We're looking at these multi-speciality hospitals. But even before we get there...
Are you talking to some companies here?
We are talking. Yeah, and some of them are interested. But even before we get to the multi-speciality hospitals, we're asking, can some of the entrepreneurs go there and set up diagnostic centers? Some of the problems are to do with either late diagnosis or misdiagnosis. Yes. And of course, we're looking at the pharmaceutical industry, if they can come there and set up base. India helped the world so much.
I want to ask you about that.
To the AIDS medicine.
Ma'am, I want to ask you that. India has played a stellar role by putting a provision in its Patents Act where generic drugs which come out of patents from Western companies, now India makes it at 1/10 the cost, and they are selling it to Africa. And South African, the Prime Minister and some other politicians said that this arrangement should not be discontinued because America is putting pressure on India to make changes to its intellectual property right regime. So what is your view on that?
We have been watching closely. And if India stops producing, let's say, HIV and AIDS drugs, and the cost will
go
up. What does that mean? We'll go back to where we were before. We don't want to go there. And I know...
And so many poor people around the world, developing world, they would suffer.
So we're hoping that will not happen. We keep praying. And in fact, on the...
So are you coming together, some of the... in this summit, will you come together and put this before the Prime Minister, this issue?
In fact, let me just say that in New York, if you are watching closely, my president, together with the president of Malawi, came up to discuss on this subject. And on the sidelines of this forthcoming India-Africa summit, I think they're looking at raising these issues on the sidelines to discuss particularly issues of HIV and AIDS, but also other medicines in these so-called forgotten diseases of diabetes or cancer. We know the after-operative cost of taking care of some of these organ transplant issues is very, very high. And if India can provide cheap medicines, otherwise you go for your operation and then you cannot maintain them.
Sure, so you're really looking forward to cooperation in healthcare. Thank you very much, Ms. Florence Weche, for talking to us. That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. Thanks for watching.